You're listening to the Academy Podcast, presenting an innovative curriculum for personal growth. Sit in on exclusive conversations with influential people as they share the secrets that made them the front runners in their industries. Now here are your hosts, Austin and Kagia.
The Academy Curriculum for Growth. I am so excited to have my homegirl, the homie on the podcast with us this afternoon. We've got Chef Adair in the building. She is a 3-year chef out of Huntsville, Alabama. Adair, thank you so much for being on the podcast this afternoon.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
So Adair she's multi-talented. Not only is she just an awesome cook, but she's also an author of her book. How long has the book been out? It's called Fightisms.
Yeah, the book came out in 2014, so 6 years now.
So she's here with us today. So I'm just excited that she's here. You know, with what's been going on with COVID-19, a lot of people being at home, and we want to talk to a real chef, somebody. Even though we say that we can cook, we want to get somebody on who really knows their stuff about food, so we can hear some good stuff from them. So we're excited that Chef Adair is on our line today. So Chef Adair, I'm gonna jump right into it. You know, I mentioned earlier that it's been 3 years since you started this new venture. Tell us about that, how you got started, your background. Give us some information on how it began for you.
Yeah, so my story is to me, the start of my business is really a story of redemption. I was a weapons systems engineer. That was my previous job. I am formally trained as an engineer, so I have 2 degrees in engineering. And I worked in the field for about 10 years. Didn't love it, but, like a lot of people, we're good at things and we just kind of get stuck in that everyday routine and just bringing the check home. So that was definitely me. And I always thought about jumping out and starting my own business, but it was just that fear of the unknown and, and what that would really be like just to jump out with both feet. So it took a catalyst for me to really jump out there. The catalyst, unfortunately, was my mother suddenly becoming ill at the start of 2017. I had all these plans for my year, and then on January 2nd, I got this call that she had suffered from multiple strokes and she was paralyzed. And my mother was, she had some health issues. I was trying to work on her as far as improving her diet and her lifestyle, but her health kind of caught up to her before that point. And so that happening just really it just shook me. And then unfortunately, about 4 months later, my mom passed away. And over the course of those months taking care of her and then watching her decline so fast, it was just a wake-up call that I needed personally, just not to be scared, not to be afraid, not to be comfortable. And so I cashed out my 401k, became my only investor, and started my business in 2017, the end of 2017. So the Veggie officially started operating January of 2018. So this is the start of our 3rd year. We specialize in what we call vegan comfort food. So we make food that is familiar but vegan. So we're not your avocado toast people, we're not your stuff you can't pronounce. So we're taking food that people are familiar with: collard greens, black eyed peas, macaroni and cheese, lasagna, different things like that, things that are familiar, and just making it vegan so that we can make the plant-based lifestyle more appealing and more palatable to people to just give it a try.
Right. Go ahead, Kagia.
Man, I got 12 questions for you, from that intro. So It's like, what direction do we go in? But the one that stands out to me the most, though, basically, is that you were doing something that you were good at.
Right.
You have natural abilities, you have natural skills, but then it's not necessarily the thing that you love. And so after having been doing what you love for 3 years, what's the difference? What's the main difference that you see in doing what you're good at versus doing something you love?
Wow. So many differences, but I mean, one thing is just, I like to get up in the morning again.
Yeah.
There had just become a time where my job was just so monotonous that I just felt like I was just dragging in there every day, and I was just doing the work. And as I said, it wasn't that I was doing a bad job. I actually was on a track for a promotion. I had just won an award. Things were going fine on the outside, but on the inside, I was just miserable every single day. And so now, even though I traded in that 9 to 5 for a whatever time to whatever time.
Right.
You know, I'm a lot happier. You know, I look forward to getting up. Sometimes I actually can't even rest the night before because I'm excited to get up the next day and get started. You know, and I'm thinking about all the things that I get to do, and so just that joy being back of you know, not having to trudge through a task every day, but actually having joy and being excited about what I'm doing on a daily basis.
Yeah, I love that. I love
And
that.
I see that even making the decision and taking the money that you were saving for retirement, you really bet on yourself.
Yeah, you know, a really good friend of mine, who he's always kind of been like my own personal financial advisor. And I remember talking to him and I said, you know, I want to start this business, but I don't want to do it the same way that everyone else does it. You know, I don't want to be in a ton of debt starting out. I don't want to have the obligation of starting a business and also the obligation of paying people back. And so I wanted to find a creative but realistic way to do it. And he told me, he said, you know, hey, if you believe in yourself enough to leap out there, then bet it all, you know, bet it all the way. And I thought it was great advice. I thought it would, although it was starting a business period is some degree of pressure, but I didn't want that extra pressure of that money pressure, which can just be insurmountable. I didn't want that on me as well. So I said, hey, I'm just going to bet it on myself. And I'm very happy with how things have progressed so far. That investment has definitely been turned around a few times over, and I'm excited about that and excited about where I believe that the business can go. And I think that's the beauty of finally taking a chance on ourselves, no matter what the goal is or no matter what the task is once you see that you can do it, there's so much freedom in that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me, I think what stood out to me the most is that you were willing to kind of jump out, take that leap of faith, bet on yourself, knowing your craft. But what are some of the fears that you kind of had to overcome when you're starting your own business? What are some things that you kind of saw in the beginning and said, man, this is tough, but you kind of got over it? What are some of those things?
I mean, listen, even now in my third year, every once in a while I wake up and I say, oh my God, I own my own business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's really all on me, you know, like it's on me, you know, like everything's on my shoulders. For me, you know, I started my business not really that long after my mom passed away. And so in some ways I was really fresh in the grieving stage, as well as working through that to start a business. And one thing that taught me, I don't think it matters the emotion, whether it's grief or, you know, if you suffer from a lack of confidence or, you know, maybe it's something like depression or anxiety, whatever it is, owning a business and having that level of responsibility will force you into a place where you have to learn how to check those emotions. Sometimes, and I think rightfully so, you know, when for instance, with grieving, you know, no one can blame a person who's grieving and whatever that process looks like. But at some point, we have to stop allowing those emotions to run rampant, or we'll never be able to progress past that moment of pain. And so what starting the business taught me was, whatever the emotion might be, learning a little better how to check things and put them in their place, not to compartmentalize them as to forget about them or not deal with them properly, but just to set them aside for the proper time so that they don't take over everything and aren't and your emotions aren't running your life. So that was definitely one thing that really, from a practical standpoint, that I've been able to not just apply to business, but just, you know, to myself in general.
Yeah. I think as a young entrepreneur, what would your message be to someone who's kind of where you were 3 years ago in terms of ready to make that jump, ready to make that step? What are some things that you did that you found useful that has still blessed you currently to this day?
One of the biggest things, you know, when I see people talk about entrepreneurship, whether it's, you know, or just changing careers, you know, a lot of times we look at it from the standpoint of being unhappy with where we are. And I mentioned that, you know, I wasn't the happiest at my job,
Right.
But it didn't mean that I didn't glean whatever I could from it. There's a lot we can glean from our job other than a paycheck. In my last position, I managed a team of people. So that prepared me to run a business and have employees. I managed a contract that taught me how to manage money and resources. I worked with very difficult people that taught me how to prepare for dealing with difficult customers or other interactions. So there are so many things that we can quote unquote put in our tool basket, our toolbox from where we are. And so I always tell people, if you're unhappy with your job or where you are, start looking at it from the standpoint of what all can I get out of this opportunity? What all can I take with me, whether that's skills, connections, and that paycheck, so that it prepares you to do what you actually want to do.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I assume even if you loved what you did but didn't appreciate who you were doing it for, I guess that's also good good news for them. I mean, if they wanted to start their own business in the same field, then learning where you are is good still.
Absolutely.
Especially when you can make mistakes on their dime and not yours.
Right.
Right. You know, so I think for those who are listening or those who are going to be watching, I got to ask, were you already good at cooking? Was that already a passion of yours?
Good question.
Cold turkey. I mean, where because now you cook all the time. So I mean, you know, is that just that?
Yeah, so you know, I'm originally from Arizona, but we moved to Alabama when I was really young. So and my mom was from Selma, Alabama. So you know, I had one of those good old Southern mamas, and she was like, you know, basically everybody who live in the house got to know how to cook. So I started learning how to cook at a really young age, and not just learning how to cook, but my mother taught me accountability. You are responsible for this dish in the home. So I started learning how to become an expert at the things I was responsible for. And so, you know, and then of course, being an engineer, you know, you learn things like operational efficiency, and you learn about, you know, when's the right time to use things, when's the right time to get rid of things, a very practical skill when it comes to managing food and food waste. So I you know, I already loved to cook. And then I was always kind of an entertainer. So I was always the person saying, hey, come over for Mexican night, come over for, you know, burger night, you know, and I was always doing that. And then a couple of years before I started the business, I thought, okay, I need to make sure that people other than my friends actually like my food. So what I would do, I changed my work schedule at work so that I could be off every other Friday. And what I would do on those off Fridays is I would make a very small amount of food available. I would post it up on social media and say, hey, this is available for purchase. And I would sell out almost every Friday. And so I was like, okay, strangers are willing to pay for my food, so that means people like it. And then before I officially started the business, I also did some soft launch events, just again to keep testing it out and make sure that people enjoyed the food. So for me, when it came to, you know, like I said, being faced with the loss of my mother and kind of being at a crossroads, there was nothing in the world I could think about that I wanted to do more than cook, because that was the thing I loved to do when I wasn't at my job. So, yeah, so it was always natural. I've always been a foodie. So before I went vegan, you know, I've tried a lot of interesting things like eel and shark and all types of stuff, because I just was interested in food and textures and flavors. And so it really has been a joy to just be fully immersed in that now.
Now, one thing that you said that I hope everyone doesn't miss, and so I'm going to rewind the tape a little bit, but though you bet on yourself, at the same time, you didn't blindfold yourself, turn around and jump off the diving board backwards, but you actually did your research. You actually put feelers out. I mean, you did certain things. And I'm sure there's a fancy word or phrase that people use for it, but you were calculated in your risk.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was not just a, you know, a blind bet, but I had already, you know, done, I guess you could say, field research to make sure people were willing to pay for the food. I had written a business plan. Yeah. I had, you know, done research on other businesses in the area to see where I would fit or where my, you know, core customer group would be. So I definitely went and did the research first before taking the risk. And it's definitely okay to plan first before taking the risk. so that you feel more comfortable. It doesn't mean that you're, you know, that you shouldn't do it, but it's okay to take a calculated risk so that you're more comfortable when you do jump out there.
And I love that you were able to kind of take just what you did from your previous job, applying it to what you're dealing with now. It's kind of like it prepared you for the next step, the next season, you know, that you have in this life now. And I think that's something that we all need to kind of be aware of, that God doesn't just put us in places just to put us there. There's always a reason for it. I'm glad that you said that it wasn't a waste, that even though you were good at what you did, I think that's important too, that, you know, you can be good at something, but, you know, God can be calling you for greater. So I think that's dope. I love that. I love that. So when we're talking about the food and, you know, switching from, you know, you were about to become vegan, what's the misconception of being vegan? What's the greatest misconception that you see? What's the biggest lie that you hear out there about people who are vegan?
Oh man, you know, inside the vegan community, there's always the joke of like, where do you get your protein? You know, people think that we're all protein deficient and you know, vitamin deficient. But you know, I tell people I get my protein from the same place your food gets theirs, from vegetables. Those animals and vegetables. You know, and so that's definitely one thing. The other thing is that people just think vegan food is boring. So they think we all eat salad, and you know, and I love a good salad, you know, but
I know, don't hate on my salad now.
Yeah, I love a good salad. You know, but at the same time, you know, it doesn't have to be just, you know, a roasted vegetable on a plate. And that's why I said, you know, that was part of where the concept for my business came in, because my mom was very unwilling to try plant-based food, because in her mind that just meant, well, all I eat now is salad, and you know, or things that are not as flavorful. And so yeah, I think people just think that vegan food is boring, but there's so much variety. I mean, I always say anything you can eat, you know, I can eat vegan. And so you know, there's so much you can do out there. There are really, really wonderful products out now that even weren't out a few years ago. There's a vegan cheese company that 2 years ago won a award for a handcrafted cheese against dairy businesses. I mean, so there are products out there that are really, really awesome, and that, you know, can really make the transition maybe a little easier for people.
Okay,
Yeah.
so all right. So the first time I had rutabaga, I thought it was, I was like, you know, make your own plate, right? So I piled a bunch of it on there thinking it was sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
And of course it was rutabaga, and they don't taste the same.
It don't taste the same.
So when you say you can have, I appreciate having things that taste good.
Yes.
So, and I'm not saying rutabaga tastes bad. It's just potatoes, and it wouldn't. So just in your presentation, you know, if I'm coming to your restaurant, if I'm eating a plate of your food, how do I approach it? I mean, is there something that looks like one thing but tastes different, or is it something that looks different but tastes like something I love?
Usually when it comes to the veggie, you're gonna see things that look familiar and just taste a little different. But actually about 40% of our customers are not vegan. Our regular customers, as far as like even our meal prep customers. And so, you know, that's kind of the thing. Like I said, you know, trying to make it familiar and use what looks familiar, sounds familiar. So yeah, in our case, yeah, you know, we were talking earlier before we went live about a vegan pot roast that I put up yesterday, that is made from jackfruit. So it definitely looks like a pot roast, you know, from the picture, but has a slightly different flavor.
Yeah, it looked good too. I'm not gonna lie, when I saw it, it looked really good. Yeah, I think it's a good question, because I think when it's good that I've seen your food. I haven't had the pleasure of trying it yet, but I've had friends that have tried it, family members that have tried it, and they love it. And you know, for you, is that where the joy kind of comes from? Is just kind of giving people that satisfaction that they're tasting something that looks familiar, even though it's different, they still love it. Is that
Absolutely. Like that's a huge part of it. You know, like I love when people actually right before everything started to shut down due to the coronavirus, we had done a vegan buffet in the city. And we had a family come up, and the dad said, "This is my first vegan meal." So I said, "Okay, no pressure." You know? So we load them up, and our buffet was a soul food buffet. So we load them up with some jackfruit fried chicken, some collard greens, some macaroni and cheese, some black eyed peas, and some sweet potato cornbread. And he finished the whole plate. And so that's one of the things that I love is, you know, seeing people be surprised, pleasantly surprised, because then it gets them thinking about, well, maybe I could kind of get into this, you know?
Yeah, sweet potato cornbread. Yeah,
that sounds
I'm
good.
about ready for some sweet potato cornbread right now.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Now for those who are watching, and when we release this, you know, it's during a time where people really aren't sitting down at restaurants right now. People, you know, are ordering their groceries online. They're getting stuff home. A lot of people aren't working out as much. They're kind of maybe slipping back into some of the old eating habits. You know, what are some of the tricks and things that you would suggest and different items that for those of us who want to eat healthy, that want to kind of stay, you know, healthy during this time? What are some things you're suggesting for us for that?
So, you know, I've seen a lot of people, and I'm sure, you know, everybody has seen as they've gone to the grocery store that the shelves are empty. You know, all the canned goods and all the, you know, the packaged food is being purchased. And I've been encouraging people, you know, you can still eat fresh food right now. Fresh food has a degree of nutrients and vitamins that are lost when you can them and package them. Doesn't mean that those things don't have any nutrients, but they definitely have less. Also, you know, to package and can things, you have to add preservatives, dyes, sugar, salt, different things that are going to help preserve that food and keep it so that, you know, so that it's usable when you open that can or that jar. So definitely eating fresh food, you know, is preferred. And, you know, I've seen a lot of people saying, well, you know, I'm buying the canned stuff, or I'm buying the packaged stuff because it's going to last longer. You know, first of all, nobody said that the grocery stores were going to close because of coronavirus. So, you know, they still go to the grocery store.
Right.
You know, although we're, you know, hopefully being smarter with our trips and, you know, and how frequently, but, I still encourage buying fresh food and preserving it. So if you're buying fresh food from the grocery store, let's say you go pick up, you know, a cauliflower, or you go pick up, you know, some carrots or whatnot. As soon as you get that home, you can freeze that fresh food. You know, I encourage people to make sauces and freeze those and have those ready for lasagna and spaghetti. One easy tip I love to give people when it comes to plant-based food is, you know, a cauliflower costs a lot less than a jar of Alfredo sauce. Take a cauliflower from the produce section, boil it on the stove until it's soft, put that in a blender with a little bit of the water from the pot, add some seasoning to it according to your taste, and you have an instant Alfredo sauce. You can jar that, you can save that, freeze that, and use that for later. A lot cheaper than buying the already canned and packaged stuff. So I definitely encourage using the fresh food because it's actually going to be cheaper for you. And if anything, we need to be saving some money right now too.
Right.
Okay. Speaking about fresh foods. Now, I just got some kale today. Now, I had a dilemma because on the rack, there was some dark kale and then there was some little lighter kale.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know which one was better. They didn't even have a different sign under it. So is it the darker, the better? When buying fresh foods, I mean, just some tips about which are better, like how much better is organic versus regular? The ones where they got the little steam.
Buying organic is not in everybody's budget. And so if you can't buy organic, what I encourage people to get is an organic wash for your food. So right now, one of the main things you want to be doing if you're buying fresh food is you want to make sure you are properly washing your fruits and vegetables. This spray here, now I have a Sprouts here in my area, but you can buy this from a lot of different stores, or you can find this online, but this is a fruit and vegetable wash. This one in particular is not organic, but you can find an organic wash. So if you want to, if you can't buy organic, you can always get the wash. That's going to be about $5. This non-organic wash is about $3. I have a business, and when we use this at the kitchen, it lasts about 3 weeks. So definitely at home, it should last you, a month and a half or more. Right. But that is a good way to make sure that your fruits and vegetables are sanitized, clean really well. Of course, there are people at the store touching, fresh produce. So that's a way to make sure that it's clean and safe for you to eat. When it comes to fresh food as well, a lot of times, you hear the phrase, eat the rainbow. The more colors of fruits and vegetables that you have in your diet, usually the better. You mentioned kale. Right now, a lot of us are at home, so we're eating a lot more. We're snacking, because we're around the house and we're not even hungry, but we're just eating. So if you have something like kale, using it for more than your salad or using it more than the saute, but you can also make kale chips, super, super easy. Put your oven on 425, just wash the kale and make sure it's dry, tear it up with your hands, mix it with just a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, roast it in the oven for just a couple of minutes, and you've got some crispy kale chips that are salty as well. So also going to give you that crunch. Really, really good.
That's so good. Yeah, I love that.
So small things like that. You mentioned what types of food as well. I did want to mention some things that I would recommend folks look into as far as to really make sure that we're boosting our immunity, because we can take the cleanliness measures and the social distancing measures, but the best way to combat sickness is to make sure that your body is healthy and that you're prepared to combat that. So 3 main things that people recommend, the doctors recommend: vitamin C. We all know you can get vitamin C from citrus, but you can also get your vitamin C from strawberries, bell peppers, spinach, kale, and broccoli.
Yeah.
Vitamin B6 is another one that's really good. B6 actually supports the reactions that happen in the immune system. You can get B6 from any type of green vegetable, especially a green leafy vegetable, or chickpeas. And then the third thing that doctors recommend, this isn't an exhaustive list, but 3 primary things to boost immunity, is vitamin E. Vitamin E helps us to fight infection. So you can find vitamin E in spinach, in nuts, or in seeds. So getting things that have like a really, really mild flavor, like a chia seed or a sunflower seed, you can throw that in a salad, throw it in a smoothie, or even in a sauce that you're going to blend up so that you don't even know it's there, but it has those extra nutrients in it. And then also you don't have to worry about the kids saying, "What is this?" because they don't know what's in there. So, so those are 3 things that cover some food groups that we really could benefit from eating right now to make sure that we're at optimum health. And then, of course, I always encourage people to stay hydrated. So also eating foods that are high in water content, lettuce, cucumbers, celery, tomatoes, because water actually helps to carry white blood cells, boost the carrying of white blood cells and immune boosting agents. So the more that we stay hydrated, then the better prepared we are to combat any sickness.
Okay, so I have another problem. And this is my last question today. Okay, so I just started eating these kale salads, baby spinach, kale, arugula, all that real dark stuff, right? And since I've started doing that and gotten used to it, I'm like a big time hater of lettuce. It's like, I don't want no lettuce. I want no cheap. I want some real green stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want no lettuce. So you brought up lettuce as a positive. So am I too stuck up now? Do I need to? Are you saying I need some more lettuce back in my life so I can get water content, or what?
Well, you can slide a little lettuce on a little burger, a little sandwich or something. Like I said, lettuce has a high water content, but a lot of leafy greens do. So you're okay, with keeping your leafy greens. Iceberg lettuce in particular, though, has a super high water content of about 98%. But other types of leafy greens are also really good. You also mentioned eating a lot of salads. One of my easy tips for people when you're eating a lot of salads, it can get boring sometimes, so you got to make sure you mix it up. A good way to mix up your salads is to chop up some fresh herbs and put it in your salad. So my favorite thing to do is to chop up some fresh basil and mix it in with all the salad ingredients, or some cilantro, or something else, that fresh herb gives it just a different flavor, even if you're using the same ingredients you used the day before. So really small things, to keep your food interesting, and keep you eating healthy is definitely good. But yeah, you're okay with I love mixed greens and field greens.
You're hating on lettuce, man. Lettuce is good, bro. Love lettuce.
I'm even looking at romaine like.
Nah,
yeah,
man.
yeah. I'm a little bit of a snob on that because I don't like to eat a lot of stems. So I like to get the green. So I like stuff that's more of like the leafy green versus than the stem. Although that does have some nutrients as well.
I'm a little bougie. I actually just tear the lettuce off of the stem. I don't do the stem. I hate it.
Oh, okay,
like,
great. See, you feel me?
The salad with the stem pieces in there, it's gross to me. No, I don't like it. I don't like it. I know there's probably gonna be some health buffs listeners like the stem is. No, I don't like it at all. I don't care how much sauce you put on the stem is still nasty.
It has no flavor.
It has nothing, no flavor. That's good. I'm glad a chef is saying that because
Yes.
I've been in it. Gross. So
Okay, go ahead.
Now,
that's my last question.
Everybody right now, there's like two main groups on Instagram right now pushing this stuff. People who are doing online workouts, and then people who are pushing out like the green smoothie stuff, smoothie, big time, spinach, kale. Is there a benefit to that? Do you see that as something that people should incorporate into their diets when you talk about freshness, or does it take away from the freshness by adding, different stuff into your smoothie?
So not necessarily. I mean, a smoothie is a good way, depending on what you put in it, right? Because, there are people out here who make smoothies with a ton of sugar. Yeah. So, definitely smoothies are a great way. And if all you're adding to it is, maybe a little protein powder, maybe something for sweetness that's also healthy, like agave nectar or date nectar that is not super high in sugar, and that's also good for people who are hyperglycemic, then, that's not bad. In fact, I encourage people to stick to something like that more so than taking a lot of supplements. Because I'll tell you, I think the third group out there is the people who want you to buy the supplements and the vitamins and the pills.
Right.
And, especially if you're a person who already has existing health conditions and you take a lot of medication, you have to be careful about taking even healthy vitamin supplements, because depending on the concentration of those vitamins, it may interact negatively with your medication. So it's not just, a good idea to jump out there and take a bunch of supplements. Try to get those nutrients from the fresh food first. And smoothies are okay, again, just depending on if you're, keeping them healthy.
Right. So, we first of all, we want to say again, thank you so much for your time today. It's like major that we appreciate you doing this, even though we're quarantined. Pastor Scott, you got anything else for us? We got one more for us, man?
Yes, I have my last question.
Go ahead. I saw you itching, bro.
So my last question is, I just want you to chime in, since you're on the food side, on the food versus exercise for health.
That's a good
what's
question.
your take on that?
So I'll be honest with you, personally, am a person who does not like to work out. Luckily, I have a job where I'm on my feet a lot, so it kind of balances itself out. But even if you work out, anyone I think that's worth their salt as far as a trainer is going to tell you that your diet is also very, very important. You can't go to the gym every day and then go home and just eat pizza and french fries and ice cream every night. It doesn't work that way and see the results. So at the end of the day, your diet is super, super important. But just being active is important. Definitely don't let people make you feel like, well, you're at home, so, since we're all quarantined, everybody should have abs when this is over, Right. But at the same time, we don't want to become too sedentary, because that can have a negative impact on your body as well. I mean, just sitting a lot of the day can impact, you can have some hip pains and some back pain that can make it difficult to go to sleep just because you've been sitting down all day. So you definitely want to, stay as active as you can. There's no restriction on, just taking a walk around the block, or if you have a nice yard, just getting out in the yard and maybe doing something, tending to your garden or doing something just to get outside, get some sunshine. Vitamin D is very important for our health as well. We get a lot of that from the sun. So just making sure that we're being active, even while we're inside is important. But I'm definitely personally not going to make anybody let me feel like I have to, have rock hard abs when this is over.
Yeah, or do 1,000 push-ups for the challenge. I've been challenged like 50
Yeah,
times.
I'm not participating in any challenges.
First 2 days I was down for it, man. Third day I was like, yo, I'm not doing it, man. Y'all are killing me. Everybody wants to tag you. Like, see 50, do 50. I'm like, nah. But no, I think that is a good question because we do want to eat healthy and we still want to get active and go out, especially just kind of during this time. Any foods that we shouldn't eat at all that you think that we should just kind of stay away from? Anything that you've seen that we should stay away from during this season, especially for some of our older folk with preconditions? I know you mentioned
so just a couple of things. Now, I don't know how much people have kept up with the news, but on March 18th, the FDA announced that they were going to indefinitely postpone routine food inspections. Now, that sounds really scary because, although there is no evidence at this time that the virus is transmitted through food, just the fact that people are paying less attention to the food we're eating is a little concerning. Now, it should be noted that the FDA had already kind of started slacking on inspections back around the beginning of the year once they had the government shutdown. So it's been happening a little bit for a while, but they kind of officially made the announcement on March 18th. Now, what that means is they're not going to be doing routine inspections, which means now it's up to those individual plants and producers to do their due diligence. Of course, we know that, commercialism and people trying to capitalize on the times is a thing. And so, there may be places out there that are taking some shortcuts to push product out faster and get it on the shelves, just trying to take advantage of buyer habits at this time. So I would say that my precautions for people would be the same as when this started happening a few months ago, which is if you eat dairy, you want to be careful. Already, something that maybe everybody doesn't know is that already today, the FDA allows a certain amount of fluids to be in dairy products. That includes things like blood, pus, skin matter, that there is an acceptable limit that can be in dairy products and still go to market. Wow. So with the FDA looking even less at some of these processes, dairy products can be of concern, especially for women who are pregnant. So I would definitely caution, if you're a person who eats a lot of cheese and ice cream and things like that, to be cautious, maybe look at some alternatives right now. In general, if you eat meat, again, with there kind of being that same acceptable limit when it comes to meat production, not just because I'm vegan, but I would just also say, to be careful about that as well. Not telling anyone to be afraid to buy any food, of course, because we got to eat, but just being cautious about what you're getting. I would even venture to say that a lot of canned goods that are produced kind of or being produced during this time, so that maybe they're coming to shelf right now or in the next month. If you've already stocked up, maybe that's a good thing with these facilities having less eyes on them. Again, we hope people are doing their due diligence, but definitely looking at dairy and meat consumption is something that you might want to decrease a little bit at this time.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, especially in a time where we're kind of getting lax a little bit with just being at home and sitting down. So just thank you so much for everything, Chef. We appreciate it. How do we find you? Where can we find you? Social media, website, whatever. Tell us how we can stay in contact with you.
Yeah, so right now, The Veggie, we're based in Huntsville, Alabama. We currently do not ship, but we are working on shipping, hopefully at least regionally by the end of the year. So definitely stay connected with us. Our website is www.eattheveggie.com. We're also on social media at that same handle on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, Eat the Veggie. And then myself, I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Chef Adair.
Sounds good. Good. Well, Chef, thank you so much for the opportunity for us just to talk to you. You're awesome. We really, really appreciate you.
Thank you.
I cannot wait to taste the jackfruit roast that I saw a couple of days ago.
Whenever we can travel state lines again and you make it back down here, I got you.
We're going to have it. All right, sounds good. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.